Gorgeous, isn't she? Ruby died, as Helen said, 16 months ago today, on the 23rd of July, 2020. She died at home in our family house, in her bedroom. She hung herself from the end of her bed. And Mark and I and our granddaughter Mia, who were away for a couple of days, came back and found her dead. And she'd killed herself the morning that we were returning in the afternoon. I tell you that because it's a bit brutal, I know, and I'm sorry to lay that on you, but actually, when you tell someone that your daughter killed themselves, everybody's first question is how, and I find it easy just to get it out there. So apologies if that's a bit hard to deal with, but there you go. I don't think that really qualifies us to come and talk to you about suicide prevention, obviously. It doesn't really, does it? Because we couldn't prevent it. And to be honest, I'm not sure that any of the services that you guys so conscientiously and faithfully provide could have actually stopped Ruby killing herself. She, over the 12 years of her mental health problems, accessed lots of services and had some very good support. It was a bit patchy because resources are so profoundly constrained. But she had pretty much everything the service, as it's currently configured, could offer her over the 12 years that she was a young person ill and then an adult, and to adult services. So she was 23 when she died. I can't remember if I told you that. Rue was the baby of the youngest of 4 girls that we adopted in the year 2000. Ruby was 3 when she arrived with us. Her elder sister, Sapphire, was 10, Crystal was 6, nearly 7, and Amber was 5. We have subsequently taken on and long-term fostered another young woman, Aisha. So we have 5 daughters. We also now have 2 granddaughters as well. So we really do girls in a big way. So Ruby's birth parents, so we adopted all 4 of the sisters. Their birth parents are both dead. They died in separate accidents related to their own drug and alcohol and mental health problems. Rue, when she arrived, well, I have told everybody who stops long enough to hear me talk, I completely fell in love with Ruby the moment I met her. She was just enchanting, incredibly clever, very beautiful, full of beans, absolutely ferocious, and anybody who's met her, and there are several people in the audience who knew Ruby personally and worked with Ruby in various ways over the last few years. Everybody will know she had an absolute death stare. If she didn't agree with what you were saying or thought you were being annoying, she was merciless because she was very smart and very opinionated. She loved school, sailed through school, primary school anyway, just ate out for breakfast, was a proper tomboy, played football for Hampshire, painted, drew, wrote poetry, wrote stories, got up at 6 o'clock every morning, ran around like a maniac until 8 o'clock at night and then fell over and went back to bed. She just was the most amazing kid, and we loved her and do love her deeply. She changed our lives, along with her sisters, obviously. So when she became an adolescent, she did that thing which I suspect many adopted children do, which is to start to question who they are and wonder about their identity and, are they this new family that they're part of, or are they their birth family? And we have an open adoption, and the girls have all seen their birth family regularly and have regular contact and always have done. So she knew who her birth family was, and she knew what the issues were within her birth family, and did that thing that, as I said, adopted children do, which is to question who she was and where her allegiance really lay. And at that point, she started to become anxious and withdrawn. And then, tragically for Ruby, actually what I haven't told you about is what happened to them early. I mean, I suspect, the kids don't come up for adoption unless there are lots of issues, and what I didn't do was explain that obviously she was neglected as a very young child. She was born addicted to amphetamines and was hospitalised twice in her first year of life for failure to thrive. She and her sisters were in care for a number of times away from their mum. Then their dad died when Ruby was before Ruby was born, when Ruby's mum was pregnant with her. And Ruby's mum really struggled at that point. She had 3 small and then 4 small children to look after on her own. She left. They were a very strong couple and they loved each other very much despite all their issues, and she really struggled after Craig died to look after the kids. So things got very difficult, very bad, very quickly. And by the time Ruby was 18 months, she was in care permanently. And it then took a year and a half for us to find Paul and adopt them. So Ruby has this early life history of all the things you might expect an adopted child to have. Having said that, she was the person that I described as a child, this incredibly vibrant, funny, so funny, very clever child, top of the class in lots of subjects and very physically adept as well. So then she becomes an adolescent and struggles with some of the normal things that adolescents struggle with on top of all the adoption issues. And then she has the grave misfortune to be raped at the age of just 13. She never wanted her abuser to be prosecuted because he was a close neighbour, and that was very difficult for her. And we have subsequently discovered that on top of the early life impacts on her ability to value herself and attach and do all the things that many adopted kids struggle with and feel loved and feel worthy, this would have had kind of a multiplicative effect on her mental health issues, and the rape will have just confirmed many of her things about her worthlessness and inability to be loved. And she carried that through with her into the rest of her life. It was never a subject, the rape was never a subject she was comfortable talking about in any context. The thing that I've been left feeling is that actually we kind of look at young people's mental health problems, or mental health problems, through the wrong end of a telescope. We respond to them when they happen. So we focus on treatment of existing mental health problems, and we see young people when they're already ill, and we just had this discussion at the table. And you'll forgive me for saying, but actually we're really crap at dealing with mental health problems. We don't have very many very effective treatments for many mental health issues. They just don't exist. The problems are very difficult, very entrenched, and we don't have very good treatments for them. What we do know, though, is how to prevent mental health problems from ever starting. And I'm a psychologist, and I work at the University of Southampton, and I work with a bunch of people who are very committed to the idea that you have a life course trajectory of health or illness, and that this starts very early on, actually in utero, but that your early years set the grounding for then the person that you become, and across your life course you acquire a set of strengths and resiliences, or risks and vulnerabilities. And I think, in terms of mental health, what we know works in terms of preventing mental illness is early investment in young families, early investment in young children, preventing the kind of trauma, neglect and abuse that our children experienced, and really working hard to support young families in a non-judgmental way so that the issues of terrible stresses and strains of poverty and substance abuse and all the other things which affect families and young families and lead their children to then carry the burden of this trauma for the whole of the rest of their lives. We know we can prevent much of that stress and poverty. We know programs like Sure Start, programs like Healthy Start, programs like Early Start in the US, all sorts of things we know actually work and are proven to work over the life course. But instead of investing heavily in early prevention, we spend a lot of time and carry a huge burden of responsibility, like you all do, for mental health problems, which by the time you get to see them, are already entrenched and already there, and are really, really very difficult to solve. So I guess I'm going to stop and let Mark talk now, but what I really want to make a plea for is that we start thinking about how we prevent mental health problems really early, and that actually rather than placing a huge burden on you guys with insufficient resources which are never going to be enough, ever, and insufficient, I guess, treatment options, let's think hard as a society about investing in young families and children and really getting things right for them from the word go, so that we don't have to sit here and worry about their mental health as adolescents. Thank you.
Hi there. So, as I was saying at our table, it is a sad thought and very distressing to realise that no matter what you do, you may fail in your quest to help people with mental health problems. In Ruby's case, 21 years of love and support and living in our family wasn't enough. So that is a very sobering and distressing thought. But I guess that you all know that and have to deal with it in your professional capacities. So just to say, it is the wrong end of the telescope, but Ruby worked with Lynn Meakin at the Youth Commission, and at the time the now CEO of Philip Mind was there as well, who knew Ruby. So after her death, I got in touch with him to set up a project to mentor young people with mental health problems into work, or mentor them in their lives really, but to help them to find a job and to keep it. Because one of the things which caused Ruby's downfall was the fact that she was fired from her job because of her mental health problems, which is hugely distressing for her because she loved it. It was working at a school for kids with behavioural difficulties, and she absolutely loved it. So I suppose, bearing in mind what Mary's just said, it does feel like a drop in the ocean, but I feel that there's more fundamental work to be done at the other end of the argument. But given that we have young people who feel that society don't need them, want them, don't value them, the idea of this project, and which really, I'm sure there are many, so perhaps it just needs to be subsumed into something that all the people collected here are doing. But what we always tried to do with our daughters was to mentor them, and that meant not tell them, go and do this or go and do that. Physically show them how, take them there from place A to place B. For example, our eldest daughter, Sapphire, in her family, the idea of going to university was a joke, didn't know what it was. She ended up, with mine and Mary's help, getting a degree in nursing. So it's that enabling and mentoring and the physical help rather than so much the talking and suggesting. It's literally getting in your car, going to person A's house, picking them up, taking them to that appointment so they can fill that form in. So to get into a position where they can actually be effective and value themselves, and that's the project we're trying to set up. So we're 16 months in now, and it's not running. The family have raised £23,000, so it's a drop really. So if everyone could sort of bear that in mind, we've had several GoFundMe fundraising initiatives. We'd like to get this project off the ground. The idea is two sort of permanent employees who run a range of ambassadors, volunteers who are mainly ex-service users or have issues themselves, who could identify friends, peers, colleagues who need help and physical intervention. So that is what I'm trying to set up. At the moment, I'm not sure what it's called. I do want to call it Ruby's Project or Ruby's Work, because this was her work. This is what she did, was help people. Thanks.